what you focus on expands, as we know. And if you change the way that you think about things, the things you think about will change.
Hey, everybody. So excited to have you here today with Power Surge, Empowering Journeys with Dr. K, and with my special guest today, Marguerite Crespillo. She is one of the most amazing women I have ever had the opportunity to meet and work with. She's been through a lot, and yet she is one of the most inspirational people. She has inspired me more in the last 4 years than I think she'll ever understand or know. But I'm really excited today to hear about a couple of her journeys or her journey in life and things that she has faced and focused on, and the positive energy and the spirituality that helped her along the way. That being said, Marguerite, thanks for coming. I'm excited to have you on the show.
What an honor to be here today. I mean, I feel like you've changed my life even more so than you say I've changed yours. So I'm super grateful and honored to be here today on your show.
Oh, I'm excited to have you on the show. I'm going to let you tell a little bit more about yourself and your background because I don't know how much of that is going to be part of your journey that you tell us about. So I'm going to let you take it away and tell us all kinds of phenomenal things.
Well, let's see. It's I turned 60 in November, so I have a lot of life behind me, right? And there's that saying, I have more life behind me than I probably do in front of me, but I mean, I'd love to live another 60 years. I'm not sure that that's going to be realistic, but you know, I, I have lived a lot of life and I've crammed a lot into the time that I've been here on this earth. I don't know if it's by choice or by force, but I think that's kind of how life happens a lot of times. It's like you get to decide, what you want your life to look like, or life happens to you. And I feel very blessed to still be standing here today. As you know, I met you in 2020 and you were referred to me by my beautiful friend, Sony Jackson. And I was diagnosed with breast cancer during the COVID year, right? And really didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know where I was going to go, what life was going to look like. And I remember talking to Sony at some point. She's like, I would really want to connect you with, Dr. Karen. And I said, okay. So you and I got on a call, and next thing you know, I signed up for your program, and you spent the next, I don't know what it was, 4 or 5 months kind of literally walking me through my cancer diagnosis and treatment. And I, to this day, don't know that I would have, well, I suppose I would have figured it out, but I'm not sure how I would have survived without, our talks. And I think we were every 2 weeks or every week. I don't remember what it was, but it was very impactful because I was going through one of the biggest challenges in my life. And I needed to have somebody that I could, you know, that saw a bigger life than me, than I could see at the time. They had to see outside of what I could see. And that a lot of what you did for me is you helped me see past that period of life so that I could continue to live and grow and hopefully impact others, right?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. That means more to me than you can imagine. It was wonderful meeting with you. And yeah, we met. I think it was weekly, and then we did a couple in between where we did some visualization sessions. But you were such an inspiration through that whole time and have been continuously since. But you inspired me, and I was
I think,
glad that I could be there in any small way for you. So thank
well,
you
thank
for
you.
that opportunity.
Absolutely. So I mean, I think about a lot of what I went through during that time, and a lot of it really even applies now, right? Is how do you really make decisions in your life as to where you want to be and what you want your life to look like? And I believe, like you do, in the universe and the power of bringing into your life what it is you want. But you have to visualize that first. You have to be able to see it, right? And you have to be able to be the person that can attract what you want and what you need in life. And I think that that's the hardest part. I think a lot of people sometimes are sitting around waiting for, someone to hand them the easy button or someone to say, oh, here's what you do, here's the path. And I think that a lot of times you have to learn to just trust that things are happening for you, not to you, right? The universe is providing things for you to live your best life and to choose the life that you want. It's not happening to you, right? Like sometimes get into that mode where, oh my gosh, the world is, pooping on me, and I don't have the same opportunities as others, or I don't have the same uh background, or I don't have the same knowledge or experience or whatever. But what I do know is that everything is figure outable, right? According to Marie Forleo, who I adore, and is that everything's figure outable, but you gotta want it, and you have to put in the work. You gotta put in the time and the effort to make things happen the way that you want to have them happen. You can't just sit around, right? Like, uh, who was it? I was talking to somebody earlier, and she goes, "Easy makes us chubby," right? If we do what's easy all the time, then it makes us lazy, and it makes us, not be what we want to be. So you do have to put in the work. And I think that the universe will support you in whatever it is you want to do, but you do have to keep moving. You got to keep put those steps in front of the other. And maybe you don't need to worry about how you're going to get there, but you do have to have some sort of a vision or a dream or like, for example, if I say I want to go to Ecuador, I have no idea how I'm going to get there. But if I put that out in the universe, right, then the universe will conspire to bring that to you if that's something you genuinely want, right?
Right.
And it will help you get there. How? I have no idea, right? Like, I don't know. I might be in that place where I don't know how I'm going to afford it. I don't know how I can take the time off. I don't know how I can. You can go down that rabbit hole that tells you all the reasons why it won't work. Or you can just say, this is what I want. How can I make that happen? Right? What do I need to do? What actions do I need to do? What activities? But ultimately, that's where I want to be. Like, I'll give you an example. We live as you know, we live out in the country. We've lived here for 30
Mhm.
years. When we bought this house 30 years ago, well, let me take you back even further. When I was 15 years old, as I mentioned, I grew up really poor and with a single mom, didn't have a whole lot in our world. And I went to this friend's house that I met in school, and the friend lived on 5 acres. And I thought, oh my gosh, they must be the richest people on the planet. Like, I want to have 5 acres. And then I wrote in my journal, 15 years old, I want to own 5 acres by the time I'm 30 years old. Okay. So fast forward, it's November of 1993. I get my real estate license. I hadn't even really thought about this. My husband and I had been looking for a home for a while, but I just figured when the time came, it would happen. So it's November. I get my real estate license. December, I'm looking in the newspaper and I see an ad for a home. It says 5 acres, seller financing, right? And I go to my husband. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go look at this house. And he goes, we're not buying a house right now. I'm going to go look. So I drive out this main road out here. I come down to the street the house is on. It's an old dirt road at the time. I come down the dirt road. I come around the corner, and there's a huge oak tree with a tree house in it. And I had a 5-year-old little boy, Jordan, at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the house. I pull in. The house was a bank foreclosure, so it was bright neon yellow. It had a pool, but it had a chain link fence with ivy. It was all overgrown, all green. I call my husband. I'm like, we're buying a house. He goes, no, we're not. I said, yes, we are. You better drive out here. So I go around to the back. I peek in the back door, and the door's open. I pop in the house. I call my husband again. I'm like, we're buying a house. You need to come out here. So he comes out. I call the other real estate agent on the other end. I'm like, hey, I want to put an offer in on this house. My husband's like, we can't do it. I'm like, yes, we can. I just got my real estate license. I can use the commission as part of the down payment. We can come up with the difference. It was seller financing at the time. It was 10% interest, and we had to come up with 5% down. Well, fast forward 30 years later, we still live in this home. Now, here's the second part of the story. For 27 of those years, I had written in my goals and in my journal, I wanted to completely remodel our home. Completely remodel our home. No idea how we were going to do it. I had a long list of things I wanted to do. No idea how we'd do it. So it's 2020, COVID year. I'm diagnosed with breast cancer. And I say, well, I think I need to get some things off my bucket list. So I started working on design plans for our home with some friends, started putting it together. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, didn't have the money to pay for it. And I had two things on my bucket list I wanted to get done. One was remodel our home, and two was write my book, right?
Right.
And get my book published. So next thing you know, I get through the breast cancer treatment, thanks to you. And I had a whole bunch of stock in the company I work for. And when I joined the company, the stock wasn't worth much, a buck or two a share. I never really thought about it. I didn't pay attention. All of a sudden, it's January of 2021 and the stock starts rising. I had engaged a contractor to help me just remodel the kitchen. I'm like, well, all I can afford to do right now is the kitchen, right? Next thing you know, the stock goes up. Well, can we remodel the master bedroom? Sure, stock goes up. Can we remodel the man cave for my husband? Sure, stock goes up. Next thing you know, we had enough money to pay to completely remodel our home. We literally took our home down to one 10 by 10 bedroom that I'm in right now, my home office, and one bathroom. We gutted the entire home. We completely remodeled every single part of our house. I had no idea how I was going to pay for it, but the universe provided, right?
Right.
And so 30 years later, we're still in this home that I fell in love with when I envisioned it at 15. And in 2021, of course, the worst time in history because all the prices were through the roof at the time, but we completely remodeled the home. And during that time, I was also able to put together my book called The 100 Things I Love About You and get that published, which you helped with that as well. You're like, you got to get it done. You got to get it done.
I remember
And
that. And you did a great job. And that's a fabulous book. Hold it up again. Everybody needs to get a copy of that.
it's called 100 Things I Love About You. And you can actually go to 100thingsiloveaboutyou.com or you can go to Amazon. It's either or. And get a copy of my book. And the book is about my relationship with my husband, who I've been with now for 38 years, I think, 38 years. And it talks about the challenges that we've gone through. And it's really kind of a journal book. So you can actually go in, you can't really see this very well, but you can actually write the things that you love about them in the book. And I'll briefly tell the story of how the book came about. So it was around 2006, I guess. My husband was traveling quite a bit. I had been a few years in the real estate industry and we had two young kids at home and I was just trying to figure everything out, right? Working like a crazy woman and trying to take care of kids and household and husband traveling and all that. And I was frustrated in our relationship. And I woke up one day and I said, today's the day. We're either going to a counselor or an attorney, you decide. Luckily, my husband is a smart man and he made an appointment with a counselor and we went to the first appointment. The first appointment, they're like, why are you here? And he's like, because she made me. And I said, wrong answer, jerk, right? Like I was mad. We went to the second appointment and they talk about family backgrounds. And my husband and I come from very different backgrounds. I, as I mentioned, come from a single mom and, very poor as a child. My husband came from, he's first generation American. His parents were born in Spain. So he had this, comes from this Latin background. You stay married till death do you part. Very different, diverse backgrounds. So we go to the third appointment and you go separately. And the therapist was like, so are you done, or are you still willing to work on making this work? And I said, well, he's at least here. So since he's at least here, I'm willing to see what we can do to make it work. He goes, well, I'd like you to go home and make a list of the things that you love about him. I go, I don't like him very much right now. I go, I don't think I could do that, right? And he says, look, I've done the pros and the cons. The cons outweigh the pros. He goes, look, set aside the cons for a moment, go home and just work on the things that you love about him. I said, well, I'll do what I can, but I don't think so. So I had a goal in my mind of making a list of 100 because I'm a little competitive by nature. And I went home and for a few days, I couldn't think of anything. I was like, I don't think this is going to work, And So after about 3 or 4 days, I woke up one day and there was tea next to my bed. And my husband has always either made tea or smoothie or something for me every morning. He always got up before I did. I said, well, I do love that about him. And then, he brought the kids home from school that day. I'm like, well, he's a good dad. Well, he's funny. And so I slowly started to make this list. Well, the truth is I only made it to 45 out of 100, but that list saved our relationship. And here is the truth. The truth is he didn't change a thing. The only thing that really changed was my perspective, my view of him, because we have a tendency in life to focus on everything that's going wrong, right? All the garbage, all that, and we have a tendency to blame everybody else for our challenges. Well, the truth is, the problem was, I'm not going to say it was only me. He obviously had his responsibilities. But when I changed my perspective of how I saw him and how I saw life and how I saw who he was and all the things that I fell in love with, which is all the stuff that you eventually frustrates you, right? You fall in love with this, but then eventually you get frustrated with those things. So it really applies to a lot of areas of life, when what you focus on expands, as we know. And if you change the way that you think about things, the things you think about will change. So when I focused, what famous Wayne Dyer quote, right?
Mhm.
When I started really paying attention to all the things that I loved about him and all the amazing things in him, I started to see life differently. And I just feel like that applies to so many areas of life in general, right? It's like, what are you focusing on and what do you want your life to look like? You have to be able to see that. I knew that I didn't want to get divorced. I didn't want to be a single mom and raising children. I wanted my children to be around their dad if I could. Now, obviously, this applies, if you're in an abusive relationship or something like that, or, it's different. But most marriages can be saved if we focus on the things that we love about them as opposed to all the things that drive us crazy. So those were the two big bucket list items that I was compelled to get finished while my time on earth was still here. And I still believe I have a lot of work to do on this earth. I don't think I'm going anywhere anytime soon. I know we worked a lot on that during our time together. And I just feel like you need to really be able to visualize. You need to have a vision for what you want your life to look like and where you want to be. And that has been a game changer for me, most definitely.
Well, I know everybody is invested now, and I know the answer, but we're just going to ask you. You did come up with the 100 things you love about him. Thus, the name of the book, right?
The funny thing is, I did not. I only made it to
Oh,
45.
so
So, but I've added to it. I'm not going to lie. I've
yeah,
added to it over the years, right? I've started to write different things down and try to remember. And in my book, you have the ability, there are 100 places that you can write the things that you love
right,
about them. So, I believe if you are in a relationship, you should buy two, one for them and one for you. So you can
right,
each write the things that you love about each other. But it's always a work in progress, right? Just like that, just
right,
like any kind of relationship is. And I wish more people would do this in the very beginning because that's when you really love them and you love all the things about them. So during those challenging times, you got to pull that list up. And I've had to pull it up many times over the
right,
years and remember, okay, yes, this is what I love about him. Okay, yes, this is why I'm here. Okay, yes, this is right? Like you have to remind yourself.
right. Well, I got my copy of it at the beginning there, and my husband Darwin looked at it, and he's like, "I love that you brush your teeth. Um, I love that you don't have stinky feet sometimes." And I'm like, "Oh, come on, thank you. That's what you're coming up with."
Well,
And
that's okay, right? Those are
part of
things.
him,
I mean,
part of him was teasing, but the other part
right.
of him was like, "There's so much more. The little things that we don't even consider." I mean,
And that's
you
the
don't,
truth. Right.
yeah,
Is like and people think that, relationships are built on big things. They're not.
right,
Like I love that I wrote this in the book too, that my toilet paper analogy of a relationship. Okay, so here you go. So when you first meet somebody and you go to their house and the toilet paper's turned the wrong way, you go, oh my gosh, that's so cute how they do it that way. Like, I don't know why they do it that way, but it's really cute, right? You think it's cute. Then you've been together like a year or two and you try to politely explain to them why they should do it your way. You go, let me help you understand, like, this is really the way it's supposed to be. Like, let me even show you. The internet says it should be this way, right? Like, you're trying to politely explain to them why they should do it your way. Then you've been together like 6 or 7 years. You're like, could you just do it my way? It's the only thing I care about on this planet. Just do it the way I want it, right? And then you've been together like 10 years or more, and you're like, screw it, do it myself. It's not worth the fight, right? Like, you learn to pick your battles. But it's always small things. People make jokes about it being toilet paper, but it's small things. It's usually not, big moral compass, issues. It's the little things that drive you crazy and the little things that you love about people. Right? It's the little things that you fall in love with over, like, the way they said something or the way they smell or don't smell, or, it's all these little things that you fall in love with in people, but they're also the little things are what drive you crazy too.
Yeah, and sometimes those little things seem a lot bigger than they are, but you're right. It's the little things that will drive us nuts. I'm a little OCD, or as I like to say, CDO, and that's OCD in order like it should be. So I'd
I've not
probably
heard
be
that. I
the
love that.
I'd be the one to go into somebody else's house and just change the toilet paper and not say anything about it. Actually, I try not to do that, though I have done it before, but with a friend. Uh, but it's little stupid things that Darwin does that is different than I would do it, and it drives me insane. But when I stop and think about it, in the big scheme of things, does it matter? I'm going to share one thing real quick and turn it back over to you. This is making fun of Darwin because I like doing that. That's an easy thing for me to do. And he likes to make fun of me, and we love each other for it. We had ice trays that didn't stack very well. And if you weren't careful, they went inside of each other, even though they were supposed to go, so that they didn't sink inside of each other. And the shelf we put it on had a lot of open space. And one of the things is we have a big container that we put the ice in after we don't have a fridge that creates ice here. So I would take the ice trays and I would spread them out onto the ice bucket instead of stacking them. It would drive him insane because it wasn't done right. Why are you doing that? They're supposed to stack. And I'm like, it makes ice. Does it really matter where they are? I'm not moving anything in the freezer. I'm not taking up space that we would elsewise be using. I'm just not stacking them on top of each other and taking the chance that they're going to sink into each other and get water everywhere. And I mean, it was about 2 months that it upset him before he finally got upset. I mean, he got upset. He yelled, and I just laughed. And I thought, how many times have I been that upset with him over something so insignificant, so stupid, that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how it is. It's always little things. It's rarely big things. So, and honestly, I think that's where we get caught up many times is in the little things. And it's really how we get caught up in a lot of our, areas of life. Like, how you show up in one area of life is typically how you show up in other areas of life, right? And when we get consumed with the little things, they hold us back, right? And they keep us from accomplishing things that maybe we want to or should, because we're so caught up in those cursed hows. We're so caught up in, the little things that we can't see. Like, what's that? People trip over dollars to get pennies, right? Because they can't see the bigger picture. They can't see beyond the pennies to see that there's, dollars down the road. And that just applies in a lot of areas of life. We get so caught up in what's right here in front of us that we can't see, we can't visualize, we can't get past that. And that is probably, in my opinion, I mean, you know this better than I, what holds people back more than anything. It's little things, it's not big things.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for me, it's relying on the positive energy of others and positive energy around me to keep my energy positive, my attitude positive, because when you're negative, negative Nellies tend to attract other negative Nellies and Neds. And Ned and Nellie out there, you're not negative. That's just the name we give it, kind of like, the Karens. And I'm that
Right.
one, but I'm not that one. um, I work hard not to be that kind of a Karen. But we get caught up in the world of negativity, and we don't turn to a higher power. We don't turn to and be it that you believe in God or the universe or whatever, and we don't turn to those things, and instead we just let life happen and let it spiral and feel like, oh my goodness, oh woe is me. Like you said at the beginning, uh, people tend to, from time to time, get caught up in all the bad things that are happening to them, instead of stopping and smelling the roses and stopping and saying, but good things are happening. And yes, bad things happen. And I say this all the time, bad things happen to good people. And darn it, sometimes good things happen to bad people. That's just not right. No, I'm just kidding. We want good things to happen to everybody. But sometimes bad things happen to good people, and it's okay to be sad about it. It's okay to have a heavy heart. It's okay to be upset and frustrated. You just don't want to focus on that and forget all of the other things that are going on around you that are not that upsetting. Because
Right.
when you stop focusing, like you said, that which we focus on expands. When we stop focusing on any positive, then our mind gets so sucked up into the negative that that's all it can see. And it goes back to tripping over dollars to see pennies.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, 100%. And, it is definitely easy to, I think as humans, most of us have a tendency to focus on the negative or what's going wrong, or, you know, the things that are wrong seem to create a bigger presence than the things that are going right. But all of those too are things that are leading you to who you're to become, right? Like, we really don't, like, I would have never in my wildest dreams imagined that I would be where I'm at in life. Like, I just wasn't even possible. I didn't grow up in an environment that trained or taught or, did any of that. I had to learn and find a way that I just knew that my why was bigger than my what, so I knew that I didn't want the life that I had had. So I had to find a way to create a different life. And I just feel that focusing on what is possible is easier than focusing on what's not possible, at least for me, because I just believe that you can do, and I get this from I do give this credit to my mom, who's, in heaven now, is it, and my mom grew up in a very different time, where women were not respected. I mean, there's still struggles with that, but I mean, I was looking the other day and it wasn't until 1974 before women could buy a home without having their husband on title. Um, that generationally things were so different. And I remember my mom always saying, you can do anything you want, you can be anything you want, you can, go anywhere you want, you can create anything you want. I remember her saying that to me. And that wasn't something that was really taught a whole lot to little girls during that time. I mean, I was born in the 60s. So, you know, women were just starting to, the women's movement and things were just starting to be impactful. So I think the best thing that you can pay forward or pass on is that confidence, is that ability to say, you can do or be anything you want. It's really up to you, but you have to want it. No one's going to hand it to you. When I hear people say someone is lucky, I don't really know anybody who's, been lucky, even if you were born to Prince Charles or someone like that. They have their own set of challenges, right? They're just a different set of challenges. So you have the ability to overcome and do things differently whenever you want to. You can change your life literally whenever you want. but it's up to you. No one else can do it for you. You have to make that decision, and you have to have you have to be conscious about it, and you have to put in the effort and the energy to make that happen. And I learned a lot of that from you.
Well, thank you for saying you learned a lot of that from me. I would like to have you give a couple of things that have worked for you to help you with that along your journey, um, so that people who are watching can go, "Oh, I could do that."
Well, I can tell you that from a very young age, I don't remember how young, but I was always somebody who journaled, and I always wrote down my goals. I mean, I have a lot of my little goal lists from way back, right? Of things that I wanted to do and wanted to accomplish. And which was great. What I didn't realize, I don't think, until later in life was that, again, the action that you have to put behind that, right? The action and the activities and the work that you need to do to make those things happen. I will say that a lot of those goals have all come true. I mean, the majority of them have come true. But I also paid attention to them, right? I've always written down, I mean, even it's funny because I look back, I'll find different journals of mine, and I'm so ADD, I guess you could say, which is right in order. But I've always kind of put in these like little to-dos, right? And I write them in my journal all the time. And the to-dos can be things from uh make sure to put the garbage cans down, right? All the way to write a book, or, I mean, my to-dos are crazy when I look at them. Like if you were to look at them, you would think I'm probably not mentally sane. But I've always written things down, and I've always put things where I could see them, whether that's, on a vision board, whether that's on my mirror in my bathroom, whether that's on a list in my car, whether it's in my journal, whatever that looks like, I've always put them where I could see them. So if you do nothing else today, make a list of the things that you would love to do, right? And it can be small things to big things. Why I say that is because there's something huge about writing things down. Number one, physically writing things down, not typing it on a computer, physically writing, putting pen to paper, pencil to paper. Number two, there's something accomplished when you get to cross things off, which means sometimes you're not going to be able to get to the big things. So you got to keep marking off the little things, but you feel good. When I look at my list of 20 things and I've marked off 3 of the little things, I'm like, woo, right? I feel accomplished. So I would say that if you take away nothing from this today, get yourself a cheap 50 cent, composition book, journal, whatever. You don't have to buy fancy ones. If you like the fancy ones, get them, because I like pretty things. But get something where you can write down every day what you want to do that day, or what you want to accomplish that day, or what you want to accomplish in the next month, year, 10 years, whatever that is. Write it down. I've even written things down and put it away and not looked at it until years later and like, oh my gosh, I got that done. I've done vision boards that I forgot about. And when I pull out my vision board, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I put that on my vision board and now it's here. It's happened. Right. So, those are things that I think are takeaways that you can do right now. And I would encourage anybody to make those 2 things happen, right? Write it down and put a picture up of what that looks like for you.
I love those takeaways, and I I do one thing in addition, is that if I do something, I feel like I'm not getting enough done that day, and I do something that's not on my list, I'll write it down just so I can check it off. So I can
There
see
you
I
go.
have checked things off. And people laugh and go, really? And it's like, yeah, really. I got that done. I needed to remind myself. And there's a motivation behind checking off one thing that just keeps you going. You can see the movement. So
You can feel the
wonderful.
progress. And even if you write it down after the fact, I mean, I look back through my journals all the time and I'll go, oh my gosh, I got that done. I took care of this. The things that, I mean, like I'm looking through this one right now, and part of it is from 2022. And I'm like, oh, wow, I got a lot of stuff done that year. Right.
Yeah,
Like you don't realize until you go back and review what you actually got done, until you can, you look back, right? 2020 hindsight, we'd all be skinny and rich, right? But you can also look back and see how much you have actually accomplished or what you've gotten done. Like I remind my kids all the time, I'm like, instead of focusing on what you haven't done, look how far you've come.
right.
Look how far
I,
you've come. Look at where you were a year ago, 6 months ago, 5 years ago. What did your life look like and how different did it look like compared to now? And I just think that's so valuable and so important that we need to constantly be reminding ourselves of our possibilities. And sometimes we get so caught up in everything that's going wrong, we forget to see what we've actually done right.
right. I love that. Oh, words of wisdom to live by. You have always, since we met, have inspired me, and you've inspired me again today. And I know everybody listening to this is inspired and will share this with other people because you had such great wisdom that you shared. And I really appreciate you taking the time to share a little bit of your journey with us today and give us all of this wonderful insight. And again, you are no smoke being blown. You are one of the most amazing people I've ever met. You have incredible stamina and strength emotionally, physically, mentally, psychologically. And a lot of people couldn't go through what you've gone through and make it out on the other side in such a beautiful way that you have. And I applaud you for that. And a lot of it is your attitude and the way you view life and the way you didn't give up. And so I admire you for that.
Well, thank you. I mean, like I said, you definitely played a key role in helping me shift that focus during, one of the most difficult times in my life. So I'm grateful.
Well, I'm glad I could be there. Well, Marguerite, you again have been a delight, a wonderful guest on today's show. And I just want to again applaud you and tell you thank you. And I know everyone in the audience that you applaud her and tell her thank you. Hold up your book again. They can go to, remind me, is they can go to 100
Well,
things.
they can go to margueritecrespillo.com. There's a link to my book, but you can also go to 100thingsiloveaboutyou.com, or it's also available on Amazon. If you go to Amazon, be sure to put my name in also, because there's another book, but it's not anything like my book. It's more of just a journal. But make sure to put my name, my full name in Amazon, and it will bring my book up. But
Yeah.
and I mail them all out personally, so I will sign it and send it out for you.
Oh, that's awesome. Now you really do want to go to her site. The site's here at the bottom. So go ahead and look that up and get your book from her because it's always better than getting it from Amazon anyway, because she'll personalize it. There, that's my 2 cents. Well, fabulous show. I'm so grateful for all of you for joining us today. Again, without you, we couldn't do what we do, and I really appreciate it. And until next time, may you find peace and joy in all that you do. Ciao for now.